So, I was gonna wait until tomorrow. It's 12:30. It's late at night. I had a really wild day. As I, like my camera in my car earlier, when I got to the AA meeting, it actually ran out of space to record. So, I wasn't able to record any more video on my iPhone. And what it did was it gave me a second to reflect on exactly how I had been acting prior to this meeting this evening. Completely. Actually, I don't really want to think about that right now. But let's just say because I was using the video camera earlier today when I was basically in kind of like a manic fit of feeling in jeopardy of using drugs as a person that I was talking to or something. So because I felt really like that, it was a step closer to feeling like I was doing something to rather than just not speak about what was on my mind and how possibly allow it to lead me down a different path. I want to change the things in my life. I love my life, and I love me, and I would not give up one single second of anything I've ever experienced. Even if they said it's going to be a lot better, I wouldn't believe them. Knowing what I have experienced, and that is, and that's taking everything. I take all the good with the good, and it's an inside joke. I have an unusual time in my life right now of choosing not to have drugs and alcohol involved with me because I bless my experiences with drugs and alcohol so much. I hold them valid. I keep them next to my heart, and I do not forsake them. And it's very important to me that I do not forsake them. Some of them were not fun. I mean, I'm just like, I'm not saying that I had an overabundance or irregular amount of things that were sacred and holy and good or something. I'm just letting you know that the truth that I hold in my heart is that every single one of those experiences is just as valid as anything I've ever done sober or anything. They're just as valid. So that being said, I have to have a different way other than just deterrent of deciding to change my life. So the question is, why would you want to change then, Ryan, if your drug life was so much fun? Well, one, I've done that. And you'd think it never gets old, but it does. And I feel like I may be finally growing up because I finally understand what kind of maybe I don't understand. I don't understand anything, but I finally am starting to relate to the consideration of compromising to meet people where they're at. So, for example, maybe I think that my drug use or what I do when I'm on drugs is okay with me, and I would do that for the rest of my life. Let's just pretend that I believe that. I have, in the last 17 years that my son's been alive, have spent very little time in his space and very little time in and around him and with him. And even though I say I have no regrets, if there's anything that weighs heavy on my heart, it is that my path walked me away from the choice of being present, really present at all, and without judgment, without saying if it's good or bad. I will tell you that it brought a lot of pain into my heart to feel the absence and the void of the thing that I cared about. the most, and then also and for two different reasons. One, at first I thought it was unfair that the world judged people the way that they did, and that they would say that a father couldn't be with his son if he say was high on drugs. They would say, so I made it the world's fault. I made it the society's fault that I can't just be there and just be me. And then I realized that my son got a little older, and he had his own beliefs, and he has his own ideas of what he believes is valid, and that changed the entire ballgame. So now, to him, it's not valid to be in his presence if you're high on meth, and because his understanding is that is not what present is, and that is not what he wants. And all of a sudden, everything started shifting in my mind. Isn't it interesting? The very thing that I maybe wasn't able to be around as soon as I was the very thing that created a paradigm shift for my thinking. Interesting. But so now it's not about the society being bad. It's like my son just wants me to be this other way. Maybe and as far as I'm concerned, if any parent is really honest with themselves about what they want to give their child, it's very simple. It's all the same. Every parent is all the same. They want to give them everything and anything. They want to literally provide whatever the child considers or comes up with in their heart of hearts that they want, and that they strive to achieve. Every parent, I believe, thinks this somewhere. Now do we run out and just hand it to them, even if we could? Maybe yes, maybe no, who knows? But every parent yearns for that exchange of just handing them, is that what you want? Then here you go. And so in this case, it's no longer society saying you can't be around your child if you're using drugs. It's my child saying I prefer someone that is like this, and I realized that I could have taken the stance that I took my entire life, where they're being judgmental, but this is my son. So what if he's being judgmental? Is it worth it? And what is it worth? What if so the rebellious, or just the solid stance that I've had my whole life, that I decide for myself about what I do and who I am, and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that I'm not a good person if someone else believes that whatever I'm doing is not good. And really checking with my heart and going inside and asking. That's been the fundamental core of who I am. And is that thing in the way that it's doing its job now, which is going inside and asking what it is, what is it for you? What do I want, Ryan? And when my son says that, now what do you want? And I say, well, I want to be around him, and I want to be around my younger children, and I'm not willing to maybe have 17 years go by where my daughter doesn't see me, or the next 17 years go by where my son doesn't see me, because that created a lot of stuff that was kind of like a catch-22 with some of the drug use. You start to feel emotions you don't want to feel, and then you run away from those emotions. And then the less you take care of, the more back home. It's like taking off school or something. The more back homework you have to make up. The more back homework you have to make up emotionally, the more overwhelming you feel, because you also have to take on life that's coming at you. So all of a sudden, drugs are automatically preferred as the method of, or tool, to manage emotional and living wherewithal, or just living. Now, screensaver went on. Now, my screensaver went on. So, what do I want now? Well, I want not just to be in my son's life, but I want to be the man that I know I am in front of him. So it's not enough just to have him be around me. It's not, and it's also not as if I can right any of the pasts that I was absent for. That would be an incessantly frustrating attempt to do something that can never be done. But I'm a pretty amazing person, and some people would disagree. Well, they would agree I was amazing, but maybe they would agree I was an amazing piece of shit, or I was an amazing. I'm saying I'm a pretty amazing person. That's awesome, and having nothing to back that up. In the realm of actions. And wouldn't it be cool if you were a child, and now he's not really a child anymore, he's 17, and you were wondering, or you knew that your father, who had not been there, was awesome, but had never shown anybody that he was. And wouldn't you want to witness that come to fruition in a period of time before, say, you got married, before, say, you made some of the biggest decisions of your life, which is like what you want to do for a living, what kind of person you want to be, where you want to live, what religion you want to partake in, things like that. The reason why I say before is because it may have a lot to do with who you believe you are, and who you believe you are, and what you are capable of. So I'm not giving you a speech saying that I'm quitting for him or for my daughter, but I'm going to cease the use of drugs with a lot of help. And I'm going to create something totally amazing, totally real, and totally useful, and totally unbelievable. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And the more impossible that it would sound, the more I would want to do it. Meaning that there is some understanding that addicts have, or that even others in society have about addicts. That they will always be some way. They will just be addicts, or they will just be this person who's broken, or they'll just be this person who always has to go to meetings. And that may be true. You see, I may have to all go to meetings for the rest of my life. So I'm not saying that that's not true. But I will tell you, it's not that I have to. You know, it's a club. You had to have been an addict to be in this club. And I get to go to meetings where people talk about real shit that's going on right then for them in a room. And I get to do that anytime I want, every day. How amazing is that? I mean, what I think if you were to take a poll in the world and ask them what's missing in the world, what's really missing in the world that you think would, just from what they call the normal people, if you ask all the normal people, which there really isn't such a thing, the only place that I've ever seen normal really physically exist was like a setting on a washing machine. That is a normal. That's an actual thing that exists. That is that. But I've never ever in my life encountered any person. But people all believe that there are these people out there. So let's just say you could imagine the populations of people that aren't drug users, that aren't in trouble, that aren't having these different types of considerations of going on. And if you were to take a poll and ask them what they think is missing in the world, or what they think would be the most beneficial piece in human camaraderie and societies being happy and living happily, I think you'd probably be amazed to find out that they'd have very similar answers. Just right off the cuff. Like, having people have more sense of society. Having more, like, neighborly love. Maybe. Having, people feeling like they relate to each other, maybe. Like, so that they're not, like totally alienating from their, in their neighborhoods, maybe. People choosing not to judge each other would probably be a huge one, for the color of their skin or for what they do. So not breaking apart into segregations. So having things of common grounds to come and stand on, and maybe they might even say to have real relationships with everyday people that were genuine and authentic, that really meant something, that were real. Like, if people all around the world had those more often, I bet you they would be happier. And I think if you were, that's kind of leading the witness, but if you had a multiple choice question and asked it like that, I think they'd probably all say, hell yeah, that would work. So I got this cool backbone of support, which just also happens to be super efficient because it understands that choosing to be unconscious with drugs and alcohol causes all sorts of freaking backlash and hiccups. So now imagine you not only got a social group, you got a social group on steroids, man. You got like the best of the best of the best, sir, because it is consistently not what people think, talking about the negative things that suck in the world of drugs. No, not at all. Utilizing spiritual principles, not esoterically or philosophically, utilizing spiritual principles as like a technology, means the application of knowledge as a tool, technology. So they're applying knowledge in a very real format to use it as a tool, and using it on every single just really everyday stuff that just gets on your, you get the little chip on your shoulder, everybody gets, just stuff that just irks you and just takes you out of your zen. But because the maintenance of an addict has to be so squeaky clean, because it doesn't take anything. It's like, if you understand, and the program speaks this very clearly, if you allow anything to slide, little pieces of integrity, if you let anything build up, it will be the thing that drives you back to using for sure. Not maybe, but for sure. So think about this now. All the little things that bother most people in humanity, they say, oh, it's not that big of a deal in comparison to like the war going on, or my neighbor just had her husband die or something. My little thing is not that big of a deal that's bothering me. So they don't talk about them because they're not life or death. What if it was life or death? I mean, I really want you to consider that. What if you, being irked that your neighbor accidentally parks on your lawn every couple of other weeks, just a little bit on your lawn, what if it really irked you, but you didn't want to mention it because it's not life or death? But what if it was? Then you would mention it. So then you would be going through the process of making sure that that slate is cleaned, because it was life or death. Because in an addict's reality, anything that pushes us to believe that drugs or alcohol or escapism is going to work, anything is basically talking us into our own suicide. And I'm not saying figuratively. I'm saying literally. Is rationality, rationalizing the activity of our own poisoning process of ourselves to death. So, yeah, it's really important that we not hold in anything about our neighbor on our lawn. And the cool thing is we don't have to go talk to the neighbor, because the social system in which is set up within or is there for each other. You see, we don't really need to yell. No one does. No one needs to yell at their neighbor for doing anything. But if they're upset, they do need to tell someone. And it just seems that would be the person to tell, wouldn't it? You're someone parking on the lawn. Why yell at somebody else? Well, when you've been through something like war, I've never been to war, so I'm not pretending to say that I have. But when you've suffered something with someone, and you have a connection with someone, when you have a connection, when they've gone through something that you've gone through, well, you already have a certain sufferance credit, like game recognizes game, where you know, because you have a connection already, because it's something that you relate to, that you've been through, that if you had something really bugging you, that person would allow you to even yell, but they know it wouldn't be at them, and maybe even sometimes at them, because you needed to get something out, or you needed to express something. As the process that they themselves, whoever you're expressing to, also understands is the most important thing to the life or death. Okay? So, you now have this network of friends who've all suffered something with you. Whether they were there when you were doing it or not, the experience of addiction and the reality of coming to the understanding that you were powerless to manage your own will and your own life just because of participation in something that brought you joy and perceived hope and feelings of stress relief, and the damage and the prices that are paid for addiction and people in active addiction. And then coming out of that, by the way, the sufferance that we share in NA is not at all being drug users. That is a common misunderstanding. We're not saying, hey, we were both drug users, ha ha ha. Not at all. That is very actually, that's neither here nor there. That's like saying we both live in Colorado. Okay, that's not a big deal. No, the sufferance I'm talking about is actually the program itself. Not saying the program itself is sufferance, but what it takes to come from the world of addiction into the world of love, light, laughter, and the reclamation of your own personal power. After addiction, now that is a club. That is a club that you can't fake the front in. That means you can't say, oh yeah, I get this. There's nobody there there's nobody there that's even like pretending to fake the front, because you can't demonstrate a way of living that you don't know how to do. And in this case, it's all about a way of living. an enrichment, by the way. Now, people would say, well, anything is enriching to a person that's maybe gone hit rock bottom and la 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 la. Yeah, okay, they used to be on the streets, now they have an apartment. No. I'm talking about an enrichment, by the way, to the most spoiled people on the planet. And they would disagree with this, maybe. The drug users became drug users most likely because of one reason. And this is my opinion, and everything that comes out of my mouth is my opinion. Make sure you understand that. So it's not truth. It may be my truth, and that doesn't make it anyone or a truth. But what I believe to be so about all drug users, the commonality, is they believe and believed that they were worth more than pain, that they deserved to experience joy, deserved it. Even so much to the face of when things came up and they experienced drugs for the first time, they said, oh yeah, that's what I'm worth. The experience of having, yeah, I feel great. You have to understand what type of characteristic and what type of person believes that they're worth. Yeah, I feel great. That's what I want. A person who believes that that is the type of life they're going to live. So, isn't it interesting that the enrichment that I'm talking about would have to be satisfying enough to a person who literally took every way out of having to be in pain because they didn't believe at a core level that they should have to bear pain, even though you have a backbone broken or something. It's just part of the process of being in pain. No. These are the type of people who they don't have that pain because they take a chemical to completely remove the feeling of that pain, because that's what internally, when they're high or whatever, they believe this is what they're worth. They're worth feeling good. There's not an ounce of them that believes that they have to have that pain. And so then, of course, it comes back around to catch up with them as they experience this false bliss and being absent from the self and unconscious. They create all sorts of turbulence, turmoil, and their life falls apart and all that kind of thing. But remember that the original intention was well seated. So, you have a certain select type of person that is an addict. A person who does not just put up with the way life is. And they talk a lot about this in NA. Because one of the hardest things for an addict to do is just sit with themselves and experience their moods, the feeling of upset, the feeling of disappointment. And it's not just because they would medicate these feelings away because they didn't like them. It's not just because of that. It's maybe a little bit because at a fundamental level, they think they're not supposed to be there. Like, they're just not even supposed to be there. Those things aren't supposed to be there. You're not supposed to have pain. And isn't that an optimist? Not a realist necessarily, but an optimist. Because imagine that. It is not ever supposed to feel bad. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? But, hey, you can always work real hard to come up with a thorough, real, authentic way of living in a community, in a process that actually creates the closest thing to the experience. Now, I'm not saying an experience with no pain, because when you get right down to it, that's an impossibility. But what's the next best thing? The experience with not dwelling in pain. Okay, I take that one. If it was on a list, okay, you have to have pain. Okay, then what I want? The least amount of it. The smallest amount of time that it runs my life. The smallest amount of time that it's in control of all of my decisions. The smallest amount of time. It's just the not dwelling in or holding on to or have it not be a main participant in the decision-making process. Yeah, just give it like a little bit of time, whatever it has to have, and then get it out and on its way. That sounds like a spoiled consideration of an optimist to me. Okay, if that's what you have to have, is that pain has the least amount of time, the least amount of decision-making process, the least amount of dwell available in your life and your lifestyle. Well, then how do we do that? What does it take? And when you consider the solution is to hang out with a bunch of people that are, now ready for this, either real and authentically there, or, because everybody can't be real, the only other option is trying to be real and authentically there. Okay. Cool. That's like the top of the human chain right there. If you could put in a room with people who are real, who just real, meaning like they're just like, if they're pissed off, they're like, I'm fucking pissed. Or if whatever's going on, they're just real. And then the exceptions are the people that are just like, wish they were real. They wish they were a real boy. And maybe they're doing a horrible job of it. And maybe they're being honest, or maybe they're not. But at any rate, they're only there because they wish they were. Okay. I have space for that. I'm inspired by that. Even the more, instead of imagining the superficial, disconnected person that the average person would run into in their relationship in the world, that may, this type of people that discombobulate you. Yes, the people that discombobulate you, that are just like, maybe like me. If I met you on the street, you might have all the things you're going to do today in your head, all laid out in a map. And if you met me on the street and I was real excited, you'd wonder what city you were in. And about 10 minutes later, where am I again? What was I doing? I'm talking about those type of considerations where you feel like the unconsciousness or whatever's happening, not talking about me, I'm awesome, but the unconsciousness or whatever's happening takes you off track. There's a lot of that going on in the world. Just by accidentally watching a commercial, just by your eyes set on something, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, because you're into that consideration. You realize that every single one of the examples of the types, and I'm saying types meaning not like to stereotype humans, but to say that there are character types. Every archetype within NA, every type of person that there is inspiring. Every type. Now, what do you mean by that? Is probably what you think. What are you talking about? I mean to say, if you did your life wreckage and fucked up shit, then you are very, very valuable in AA. Because the practical application of how someone can take their life from destroyed to powerfully self-expressed and free is the only game in town for that. It's like, in other words, you can't tell somebody, there could be like one guru saying, this is how you fix your life. Because there's so many people that need their life to be rekindled and reconstituted that they need one-on-one. They need someone that really relates to their specific scenario because they believe they're the only ones like me. I believe I'm the only one that broke myself that way or this way. And I'm not going to fall for any cookie cutter consideration that everyone in the world is going to be fixed by if they believe they're broken. because there's a billion of different ways to break yourself. So obviously there must be a billion different ways to fix yourself, if you believe that you're broken, and if you believe in fixing. Which I neither believe in either of those two. And so in this way, what I mean to say by saying they have every type of character type, and they're all inspiring, is imagine those guys that you judge that are down the street, that play basketball or maybe break into people's cars and take their stereos. You know, whatever, whoever you judge in the world. I'm saying whoever you've ever judged in the world, what kind of crappy person you think there exists. I'm talking to you now, the person who's watching the video. Just imagine whatever you think is kind of a crappy person. Maybe deadbeat dad or this or that. Whatever is the thing that you think, hey, that's pretty crappy. You will witness that exact character come in to a room. And it never fails. If you have the belief that there's these people, you know, those thugs that just are like all hip, you know, all punks and not real and fucking bullshit and fucking up things, wait until you witness one of them come in and break down into tears and not tell his story of this weird world that you could never relate to. Tell an authentic confession of fears that cripple him, that make him feel unloved, that are identical to yours. Identical. So, we start to see the commonality within the distressed mind. And of course, drugs and alcohol make it real hard for a distressed mind to work itself out while it's being affected by drugs and alcohol. That's true. But can you imagine if you had a book club that also had the agreement to never be drinking wine while I was reading the book of the book club, to pay attention completely as much as it possibly can, consciously to the utmost for its own well-being? Do you understand what I'm saying? This isn't entertainment, even though it is entertaining. It's literally what we originally wanted when we went out for drugs. Hey, how do you feel when you're on drugs? When you first do drugs, when you first you feel like you connect with people right away. Your inhibitions go down. You start to get funny. Whatever you get, if you're shy, you get outgoing. If you're outgoing, you might get a little bit warm. Whatever, your inhibitions leave. So you allow yourself to just kind of be more expressed. You know, the loud drunk guy. Okay, so you feel good, but then also you don't think about what? You don't think about all the fucking stresses of the day. You forget about the fact that there's this that you have no idea of how to take care of, and you don't even realize that all of these things are present in the world anymore. So now you're oblivious to these things. So it's almost like ignorant juice, right? To be ignorant. So you get drugged and you go, wow, I feel great because I deserve to feel great. Because all of these things, the problems that I have when you're drinking, I'm saying, or you're using, you think to yourself, well, they're not. If I don't have an answer for them, I sure as hell don't deserve to sit in the misery of them existing. I should have breaks from that. Like, you have a weekend off work, so you should have time off of the whole consideration of what the fuck am I going to do with the fucking life I have. So it seems very justified, and to most of the world, that's what they do when they drink. They just kind of take a little bit of time for themselves. Well, imagine turning it on its back end or flipping it around, flipping the script. So quite literally, imagine if you're just a really light drinker but really enjoy drinking right now. And so you drink maybe once a week or twice a month, and you're never had a problem with alcohol, you just really enjoy those moments because you just get to stop and have that relaxation. 4 times a month, whatever amount of time, say they spend 2-3 hours of time. Imagine if that time was the time that you spent present in specific intention, like in a meeting. To have the rest of the time be like when you're drinking. So flip it. Instead of having a few hours off from your troubles, where you don't have to think about the things that you're totally out of control of, and and they're always going to be bad. And instead of having a few hours off of that, like a little vacation, what if the few hours could render the other things incapable, in a sense of prolonging or prolonged stress? So like, what if the drink, instead of having a hangover the next day, it really did solve the problem? Imagine that, right? If it solved the problem instead of just fading away. Well, NA literally is the drink from the cup of self that does solve the problem. No shit. It doesn't medicate it away. It isn't a Band-Aid. It is, as it says, it is. It is a step-by-step process of whatever you are looking for. What do you believe should be in your world? What do you feel at the center of yourself is you? What is the world missing that you believe you give it? Everything that you can think of that anyone's ever talked about when they were really connecting and they were high on drugs or alcohol, like, when they would sit around campfires and say, "Oh, we're going to change the world, man," and that moment, wasn't that amazing that some people do that, get high and talk about all the great things they're going to do? That's a real character test to the fact how cool people are. That when they get out of unconscious, they talk about all the great things they're going to do to the world. Unfortunately, when you're consistently unconscious, I don't need to tell you that the chances are low that any of those conversations are going to get anywhere other than that campfire. For one, because they won't remember them because they were high. Or two, they, instead of going out and having any idea of how to attack any type of mile marker type orientated deliverance, like, how did you do anything? Well, in school somebody said, bring me a project or an assignment on this date, on this date, on this date. They're mile markers. That's how they know that you've graduated or moved through processes. So anything that you've ever said or thought you were going to do has to have a process. If you think it doesn't have a process, well, then it doesn't matter because it's never going to be. and if it is, if it currently does exist, then it had and has a process by which it comes into existence. So, if you are a person that wants to see something in this world be a reality that isn't, like creating something or doing something or starting something, or I'm not saying anything. Could be a marriage, could be a remarriage, could be a business, could be a concept for a nonprofit, could be a political, anything that you've ever said that you maybe think that you'd like to contribute to this world. You're going to find that it's not going to be very good studies to look at all of the examples and how they were created of the things that don't work. In other words, if you want to create your thing, which is most likely awesome and amazing and probably is a game changer, because it's totally unique and different, and coming from the right place, coming from a person who really just wants to give the world a gift, well then, you don't want to do it like they did it, because it won't be what your gift is. So the very first thing that must be understood is, who are you? Isn't it funny that even those light social drinkers that say they don't have a problem with alcohol, they'll almost always get that glossy-eyed look when they've had a few drinks? Or once a month, I don't care if they're just once a month people, or they feel like they're them and they're just them. I'm not arguing with you, because what you believe is what you believe. I want to join you, but I don't want to have to take alcohol to do it. So when you're in this process of feeling good, of feeling like everything is right with the world, and you get inspired, you think, it'd be great if there was like this nonprofit that like helps kids get out of, and you're in that space of like just being the creative thing that's going to give the world something amazing. Remember that there's a whole bunch of people that know and practice processes for the specific intention of bringing themselves up to get high, that are looking for you to make your blissful reality that you were thinking of, that you're in your heart, a real reality that they can participate in as well. Do you see? It's why people love to drink together. They want to share some sort of thing that they think that they're both having. They feel good, and so they want someone else to come feel good. Well, that gives you another just little key into the nature of humanity. It doesn't just want to feel good, it wants others to feel good too, and it wants to join and be joined. Cool. Awesome. That's about all I got. Most people think that NA or AA is about giving something up, about being sober, being clean, and just clean dates. I was just thinking right in that moment when I decided to speak right now, if there was one thing that you take from this entire video, that is my opinion. It is totally my opinion. And it's not the shared view of everyone in the program. But if there's just one thing that I would want you to take away from this video, it would be you probably won't believe this, but even if you could maybe think that this is possible, that maybe it's possible, just the inkling of maybe that's true, that's enough. Is that NA and AA or whatever isn't about anything except for removing what takes everything from you. It's not about giving up anything. It's literally the opposite. Because people go, well, I don't want to quit anything. I'm not ready to stop. Hey, cool. Are you ready to have everything you've ever wanted? Have you ever had the sensation that you know what you want, but maybe you don't deserve it because you've almost had it, you've had it before and then crashed it, you've sabotaged, you shoot yourself in the foot, that you yourself stand in your way all the time? Do you have that sensation? Cool. Well, before you off yourself or something, because you're the problem, there's actually a rehab. Like, you rehab your house, you get, work on, put a new kitchen in. You can just actually rehab so that the you that you become does not stand in the front of you, tripping you and shooting yourself in the foot. And you actually have everything you've ever wanted. Really? Yeah. That doesn't sound like giving anything up to me. Right? So, and most likely no one will ever see this video. It's just for me to get clear. For just me. And I don't even know if this is clear. I make no claims to being right or true or honest. I don't even know what those things are. I'm just now learning. I'm learning that those things are in existence. That's this course now. That's where I'm at. Like in a couple of years or next year or the next month is when I actually have anything to do with actually applying them or using them. So I have no idea if I'm telling the truth. I have no idea. That's the best thing about what I believe I'm involved in, is that it's all about what your heart, once you can clearly speak to it, recognize it, or talk to it, or have a higher power, or have some sort of relationship with something that does actually support you, that doesn't abandon you. Like, imagine that, taking advice from something that really fucking cared and had no hidden agendas. But even knowing that there was such a thing, or maybe even knowing that there was even a consideration that didn't require you to believe there was such a thing, and would still use itself and all of its resources and all of the resources of its imaginary such thing to benefit you. Right? Talk about having your cake and eating it too. That's spoiled. So if you have the desire to live the life that you love the life that you live, powerfully, freely expressed, like you've never seen in any example, and even when it's happening will still be beside yourself with the surrealness of it, which may last the rest of your life. If you're ready for anything like that, if you deserve that, if you deserve to take the good with the good, I don't know, just try it out, just for today, see if you like it. That's enough. This is the video that I made after my crazy manic drive to the meeting tonight. Wow. And I didn't even talk to you about what happened at that amazing, magical, miracle meeting, and how much 1 hour in a totally strange place 5-6 people that you've never met could change your mood that much, and your life that much, and your perspective that much. And it doesn't even cost anything to get in. I mean, really. Earlier today, I was hallucinating that I was going to be using drugs. And, crazier and scared and all that stuff. And now I'm here. And I credit that meeting for that. I went to 2 other meetings before that, and they seemed to make me even just more wily and more scared. But that's why they say, keep coming back. Because it always works. It always, ready? Always works. If you work it. It always works. You got anything like that out there in that world? Do you have a beer that always works? Do you have a drug that always works? Cool. That's it.